All right, you guys, happy Monday. I hope you enjoyed the holiday weekend. I certainly did. We baptized baby Roman. It was my husband's birthday and it was America's birthday. So it was just a good weekend of family fun. Anyways, we are officially in upside down land. So I hope you are currently watching this on your head because people are up in arms because just like Diddy, Epstein didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing. The Epstein case has been officially closed, my friends. He actually didn't even have a client list that he used for blackmail. It's kind of hilarious, objectively hilarious. Is what I think our government has become. We're going to talk about that. Also, Tucker Carlson is at it again. He's in deep trouble with the mainstream media and the censor lords because he went ahead and interviewed the president of Iran. I mean, if we're going to maybe be going to war, maybe we should speak to the other side, see what's happening. And everyone knows that propaganda only works if Americans hear just one side of the story. So he is really ruining that right now for the deep state. All that and more coming up on Candace. We have got to start with Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm sorry that I'm smiling about this. It's just getting so ridiculous. It feels like the evil people are now laughing in our face. And there's so much that has happened. And I feel like a lot of it that happened way back in 2007 and 2008 isn't really known to the wider public because we went through this phase where the left and the right, we hate each other so much, way too much to appreciate the bigger picture that was happening in the middle. So I'm going to slow everything down for you so you can truly appreciate how absurd this story is. First and foremost, and this is my favorite part of the Jeffrey Epstein story, is that he is a man who became a billionaire. And the strangest part about his billionaire status is that nobody knows how he became a billionaire. Yeah, they can't tell us that. That's my favorite part of the whole thing is just like Chris, my editor, mentioned earlier, you don't pay 8 cents of tax money. And they'll be like, right here, my friends, you shorted the government 8 cents. But Jeffrey Epstein, we don't know where he got his billions of dollars. The real story actually begins with a man named Donald Barr. Okay, Donald Barr. And if you're listening to that right now and thinking, Candace, that surname sounds strangely familiar to you, well, it is because he is, in fact, Bill Barr's father. Bill Barr, who worked for the CIA and then became the U.S. Attorney General under George H.W. Bush, and then again under Donald Trump's first term. Yeah, that Bill Barr. His dad was Donald Barr. And his dad was actually a pretty interesting character, I got to tell you, because he published this book in 1973, a science fiction book. I want to be clear, it's fiction. And it was entitled Space Relations. And this totally fiction book told the story about a planet that is ruled by oligarchs who engage in child sex slavery. Wow, that is really weird. Per Wikipedia, they write, quote, "It has been noted that the plot of the novel anticipates the crimes of Epstein and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell." And even more interesting, by the way, is that this planet that is engaging in this child sex trafficking is known as the Kossars. Let me spell that for you. Kossar. Not to be confused with Khazars. But I did decide to look into the word Kossar, Kossar, and it does, it actually is a surname from Eastern European Slavic area. But don't let you get caught up here, okay? Anyways, in this intergalactic plot, there is this group of people who are political extremists, and they are ruled by oligarchs, and they settle this colony in the middle of nowhere because they're political extremists. And they're actually, it says on Wikipedia, they are bored because they just have so much power, such absolute power. They never get in trouble for anything. They can do whatever they want, these Kossars. And they're bored with their power, and they have an ambassador that's helping them to be welcomed back into the wider empire, because the wider empire is actually not down with their slave-owning society. They don't allow them to kidnap human beings and to trade them. That's so strange, right? Very interesting story that Barr was. It's a totally fictional story that he was telling. Vice actually read the book, a journalist named Becky Ferreira, and she describes the novel as highly unsettling due to its depiction of rape of enslaved people, particularly teenage girls, and other coercive sex acts. The sex acts described are performed, quote, for the dual purposes of entertainment and controlled procreation. And she views the novel as sexualizing minors and fetishizing rape. That seems really weird. But Daddy Barr, wrote this book. I got to tell you something else about him because it's quite interesting, because it does end up being a lot of what Jeffrey Epstein was accused of and was taking place, was actually doing. At the time that his book was published, even more interestingly, Donnie Barr was the headmaster of a school. Wow, could you imagine sending your kid to this school? And then this guy publishes this book about child sex exploitation. Anyways, he was the headmaster of a school called the Dalton School in New York. And while he was the headmaster, a young Jeffrey Epstein was selected to become a math teacher at this school. Jeffrey Epstein, by the way, was just 21 at the time. Donnie Barr is the headmaster. Jeffrey Epstein becomes a math teacher. And I got to tell you why that's weird. First and foremost, because Jeffrey Epstein only had a high school degree. He didn't have any teaching certifications. He had dropped out of this mathematics program at NYU. Yet under Donald Barr's stewardship, while he's writing this book on the side, Jeffrey Epstein is plucked from obscurity to teach at one of the most prestigious schools in Manhattan. So prestigious, by the way, that today, tuition is $65,000 per year. By the way, I should tell you, Barr himself was a bit controversial. He actually made several unconventional hires at this school during his tenure. And soon after Jeffrey was hired as a teacher, he had to resign amid some controversy. I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole for you, but yeah, he's an interesting character. And you are probably not going to be shocked, but while Epstein was there as a teacher, he was inappropriate with the young female students. He attended parties with them. They spoke about this in the future. Anyways, this unqualified, or at least underqualified, creepy Epstein, who only had a high school diploma, then magically gets a job in finance. Again, zero qualifications. He just somehow became friends with the CEO of Bear Stearns. So in 1976, he joins this firm as a low-level junior assistant to a trader, because again, he doesn't have any qualifications. So he's just assisting, not even the executive assistant, the junior assistant to a trader. But magically, you guys, you're not going to believe me. Just 4 years later, that junior assistant, Jeffrey Epstein, became a partner of the firm. I kid you not. He was made a partner of the firm at the age of 27 with zero financial background. It's giving Emmanuel Macron. It's giving like someone more powerful is just kind of pulling me up through the ranks, and I'm allowed to do that for whatever reason. I don't know. That's just, I'm getting a vibe here. It just sounds very familiar to me. Anyways, just 1 year later, he actually had to leave that firm, even though he just made partner, because he was found guilty of an SEC violation. So partook in a little bit of fraud, very quickly had to resign. But it's all good because then he just started his own consulting firm, because obviously he's super qualified to do that, to start consulting for billionaires and governments, because that's what he did. He establishes like Epstein and Co. at the age of 28, and he begins consulting for governments and extremely wealthy clients. Some of those clients, by the way, who have embezzled funds from people. I'll give you just one example. This guy, Stephen Hoffenberg, hired Epstein in 1987 as a consultant for his Towers Financial Corporation. And while Jeffrey Epstein was consulting for Towers Financial Corporation, they happened to take part in the largest Ponzi scheme ever recorded until Bernie Madoff came some years later. Oh, darn. Once again, Epstein's just caught up in a little bit of fraud. But that didn't give the other elites, the other millionaires and billionaires, any pause to continue working with him. No, they just kept hiring this guy. And his most significant consulting relationship began with Leslie Wexner. Now, if that name sounds familiar to you, it has been alleged that Epstein made millions because he was managing Leslie Wexner's affairs, millions. Far cry from billions, but Leslie, you might recognize Wexner because he is the owner of many retail stores. Abercrombie and Fitch, Victoria's Secret, I think is probably the one that he's most known for. Lane Bryant, just the L brand in general. Leslie for whatever reason, just felt that Jeffrey Epstein should just be given control of everything. Power of attorney, make hiring decisions, firing decisions. He really empowered this Jeffrey Epstein. And for whatever reason, while Epstein was empowered, when executives at the company would come forward and say, hey, this Jeffrey Epstein is kind of a creep. He's posing as a recruiter for Victoria's Secret models, and he's getting access to these women. That was completely ignored. Of course, we know what happens next. Epstein, or during this time frame, he is throwing parties for the elite of the elites. Everyone who wasn't anybody is obviously at a Jeffrey Epstein party. He is the guy to know. His sidekick there, Ghislaine Maxwell, we'll discuss her briefly in a bit. Fast forward to 2006, bad year for our boy Epstein. Bad year. In early 2006, Epstein was actually charged in Florida with multiple counts of molestation and unlawful sexual activity with a minor. Now, to be clear, the FBI was able to confirm for 34 minors. They were able to confirm their stories had been corroborated, that they had been abused by him. That number was then increased to 40 by the time he signed this really interesting plea deal. Okay. Now, to just let you know what he was up to, the details from the investigation included allegations that 12-year-old triplets were flown in from France, interesting place, for Epstein's birthday, and then flown back following the day after they had been sexually abused by him. It was alleged that the young girls were being recruited from Brazil, from South American countries, from former Soviet countries, Europe, and that a certain Jean-Luc Brunel, who ran the modeling agency, which was funded by Epstein, known as MC2, was supplying these young girls to Epstein. Now, Jean-Luc Brunel, again, we're not going to get sidetracked here. He's a French guy. A lot of things that are just going to cross with the Epstein and the French and everything we've uncovered about Emmanuel Macron. But we can't speak to Jean-Luc today because you're not going to believe this, guys. Jean-Luc got arrested, and when he was in a cell, he committed suicide by hanging himself. Yeah, so that's another dead end. He committed suicide, sadly. Anyways, oddly, Jeffrey Epstein, despite everything, all of his guilt, he was delivered this amazing deal, caught red-handed. And yet, Alexander Acosta, who was then the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, handed him a very light sentence, and the deal was incredible, okay? First and foremost, the deal granted immunity to any of his potential co-conspirators. So it's like they're investigating the feds, and they're like, okay, this guy's got something to do. Oh, these people, everyone's involved. We're just going to go ahead and grant immunity to those people. The prosecutors also agreed that they would keep the deal that they made with Jeffrey Epstein a secret from his victims, so that the victims could not challenge it in court. So they just get a phone call. They found out that Jeffrey Epstein, we already dealt with that. He actually signed what's known as a non-prosecution agreement with federal prosecutors. So in the end, he pled guilty to just one count of solicitation of prostitution and one count of procurement of minors for prostitution. And what they gave him was a sentence of 13 months in county jail. And I want to be clear that when he got sentenced this, he was allowed to leave to work at his office and to go for walks. In fact, this part is actually so incredible that I want to read this straight from the Wikipedia page because I can't even do it justice. Now, Wikipedia is just pulling, you can go and fact check these. This is from like the Washington Post, other sources, but it reads, while most convicted sex offenders in Florida are sent to state prison, Epstein was instead housed in a private wing of the Palm Beach County Stockade. That's the sheriff's office, just so you guys are clear. He was just housed in a private wing of the sheriff's office. And according to the sheriff's office, was for 3.5 months allowed to leave the jail on work release for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. So for 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to leave. Now, when he was actually in his private cell, the door was open. Epstein's cell door was left unlocked, and he had access to the attorney room where a television was installed for him. I want to make that clear. So he is not only allowed to leave his room whenever he wants, allowed to leave the sheriff's office for 12 hours a day, including one day of the weekend, because it's 6 days a week. They also went through an effort to install a television for him in the attorney's room. Not even the attorneys got that, but they installed one for him. Okay, great. That's before they moved him into their previously unstaffed infirmary. Now, the sheriff's office, if you're wondering what they got, Jeffrey Epstein, right before he turned himself over, he established this not-for-profit. And from that not-for-profit, while he was in jail, he paid the sheriff's office $128,000. And that was for extra service that they had provided him during his work release. And what extra services did they provide Jeffrey Epstein during his work release? Well, he wanted to make sure that his office, his off-campus office, was monitored by permit deputies and that their overtime was paid for by Epstein. And he made sure that those deputies that were coming with him to work wore suits and that they checked in his guests at his front desk. So the sheriffs, while he was going to work, came with him. He paid them for overtime. He wanted them to wear suits, and they were responsible for checking in his guests. This is while he's in jail serving his sentence, okay? Now, later, the sheriff's office would say that the guest logs were destroyed. So we don't know who they were checking in for anyways. Epstein served almost 13 months, if we're calling that serving, before he was released in 2009 for a year of probation on house arrest. Now, I want to be clear, house arrest for Jeffrey Epstein looked a little different, okay? While on probation, he was allowed to go on numerous trips because he doesn't have just one house, you guys. So he was allowed to take his corporate jet to his residences in Manhattan, in the U.S. Virgin Islands. He was also, because you can imagine he didn't get a lot of exercise in his houses, he was allowed to go on long shopping trips and walks all around Palm Beach for quote unquote exercise. Actually, I actually do think he probably had a gym in all of these houses. But the point is he wanted fresh air exercise. So he needed these long walks throughout Palm Beach. Epstein was also allowed to use his own driver to drive him between jail and his office and other appointments. Now, you're probably thinking around now, why on earth would Alex Acosta agree to that? What's he doing? Why would you allow this man guilty as sin to essentially just run a sheriff's office for a few months and then do whatever he wants thereafter? Well, Alex Acosta faced a lot of pressure when Trump nominated him for Secretary of Labor. And he told reporters years later that it wasn't in his control. He said, quote, "I was told that Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone, and that Epstein was above my pay grade." Excuse me, above the pay grade? The Attorney General of the Southern District of Florida? Who exactly is paying Epstein? What colony of COSARs, what are we calling them, could be so powerful, almost bored with their power, if we're going back to this space book, bored with their power, that they would allow this to take place and have confidence, know fully well that even if they get caught, who cares? I mean, you'd have to be so powerful and so politically extremist, like that book suggests, that you could, like, I don't know, sink the USS Liberty, maybe shoot a sitting president in broad daylight while you're at it, and still have politicians referring to you as friends and allies. Anyways, let's not get lost here. There are some more interesting facts about Jeffrey Epstein. One, he had a working fake passport. That's incredible. He had an Austrian passport with a totally fake name that placed his residence in Saudi Arabia, and it worked. So yeah, he was a Fed. Obviously, he was very high up in the deep state, and he used this passport to enter countries throughout the 1980s when he was very young, the 1980s, guys, including the United Kingdom, Spain, Saudi Arabia. He also had a very compelling interest in artwork, okay? And you've probably seen this. He had this artwork of Bill Clinton in Monica Lewinsky's dress above his desk. And that's interesting in general, because I don't know if you know this, but President Clinton was blackmailed. He was blackmailed by Israel because they wanted to get this deal done with the Palestinian Authority, and also were pressuring him to release one of their assets, Jonathan Pollard. Now, Jonathan Pollard, to give you a background here, was another agent of Israel. He was actually a CIA analyst who was found guilty and went to prison for 30 years for spying on behalf of Israel. So he worked for the U.S. government, but he was spying on behalf of Israel. Anyways, this is according to the Times of Israel. Let's take a look at what happened. Netanyahu said to have offered Lewinsky tapes for Pollard. Okay, it reads in this article that Israel attempted to use tapes of the former U.S. President Bill Clinton's steamy conversations with intern Monica Lewinsky to leverage the release of Jonathan Pollard. That's at least what the book regarding the Clinton family was claiming. The book is entitled Clinton Inc., and the subtitle is The Audacious Rebuilding of a Political Machine. And the author, Daniel Halper, relies on the record interviews with former officials, together with a close analysis of documents that were termed the quote-unquote Monica files. And it tells the story of one of the most prominent political families in the United States, being the Clintons. According to the author, the documents indicate that during the Y plantation talks, so these were plantation talks like it was held on the Y plantation in Maryland, okay, between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. And Bill Clinton was in the middle of this because, just always drama happening there in 1998. And Netanyahu wasn't getting what he wanted. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, our dear friend and ally, pulled Bill Clinton aside, and he presses, first and foremost, for the release of Jonathan Pollard. This is directly from the Times of Israel article. I'm going to read this quote. The Israelis present at Y River had a new tactic for their negotiations. They'd overheard Clinton and Monica, and they had it on tape. Not wanting to directly threaten the powerful American president, a crucial Israeli ally, Clinton was told that the Israeli government had thrown the tapes away. But the very mention of them was enough to constitute a form of blackmail, Halper wrote, adding that, quote, according to information provided by a CIA source, a stricken Clinton appeared to buckle. Our friend and ally is at it again, you guys. Yep, they're at it again. Hey, just want to let you know, I have tapes of you with Monica Lewinsky, but I'm going to throw them away. Oh, I don't know. Why do you have tapes of what took place in the White House? What's going on? Should we ask questions? No, we shouldn't ask questions. We should never just ask questions. Anyways, yes, obviously, the entire world knows that Jeffrey Epstein was their asset. He was working for them, obviously, okay? From Ghislaine Maxwell and her father's involvement with the Mossad and who attended his funeral. Leslie Wexner, look up everything that he donates to. I mean, he's essentially, he works for Israel. This is like a known fact. But you guys, I want you to be calm. It's all good. Because now the Department of Justice has come out and they say that Jeffrey Epstein, he had no list. The girl has no name. Here it is in Axios. The DOJ, the FBI conclude that Epstein had no client list and he died by suicide. Nothing to see here. And that's what happened. They made that conclusion. They had no evidence that the convicted sex offender and disgraced financier, or even calling him that, I don't even know how he's allowed to be deemed a financier, that there was no evidence that he blackmailed powerful figures or that he kept a client list or that he was murdered, according to the memo. And now if you're thinking, didn't we see when the FBI raided his home that there was a photo and he had all of these tapes? That's a lot of stuff. Yeah, here's another photo. It just seems like he maybe had a lot. But no, guys, there's nothing that indicates anything at all. Nothing at all. And yeah, they also are releasing some raw and enhanced versions of footage of the Manhattan prison where Epstein was held the night that he died. And they say that the video supports the medical examiner's findings that Epstein died by suicide. And the footage is hilarious. Just like one image. They're like, see, no one walks towards his cell. I mean, oh, okay. Here it is, guys. I guess that means since no one entered the cell this way, that it's totally impossible that anybody entered another way. It's totally impossible that anything else happened because look, we're showing you the footage, friends. It's over. Look away. I mean, now the nation that cared so much about Jonathan Pollard that they blackmailed Clinton to get him back, to try to get him back. And when that failed, they still were able, by the way, to get Jonathan Pollard he received a pardon in 2021. Incredible. Guilty. Fully admitted that he is guilty. Israel has admitted that he received a pardon in 2021 from President Trump. I'm not kidding. They said this would go a long way in just healing, tensions between Israel and America. And so even though he was already out of prison, they felt that this next step should be taken, which is to say, just wipe his record clean. And President Trump did that in 2021. And then what Jonathan Pollard did as soon as he got that pardon was he got on a plane and went to Israel and was greeted on the tarmac by President Netanyahu. Yay! Smiley face. Anyways, it might sound like I don't believe any of this, and I don't want you guys to walk away and have my attitude. I can be a cynic. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I've read what the press says about me. So I will first and foremost remind you that this is kind of strange to hear, only because Pam Bondi definitely said on Fox News in February that the client list was on her desk. I mean, I'll let you guys watch the clip of what she said on Fox News. Take a listen.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
And then Alina Habba went on to Piers Morgan in February and said that they had flight logs, information, that they had names. I mean, take a listen.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court. But again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years, Pierce, in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now with Cash and Pam, there will be accountability.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my little Men in Black tool, and just wipe your memory real quick. Phew, phew. She didn't say any of that. Phew. Cool. Now let's run Caroline Leavitt at the White House briefing earlier today. Take a listen.
DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
Follow up on that,
Sure.
Caroline. Okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
Got the quote.
Go ahead.
Sean Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that.
There you have it, you guys. That is transparency. That's transparency. I mean, I don't know what more you want from your government. Do you feel like they're laughing at us? I feel like they're laughing at us. We are definitely in clown world. I'm not a huge Elon Musk fan because I think he plays a role in the coming AI system of controlling global affairs. But he did nail it with this clown meme tweet. I will say that. We will release the Epstein list. We just need more time. The Epstein list is on my desk. There is no Epstein list. It just happened, like just right in our face. And listen, if I was writing a fantasy novel about costers getting away with everything, I don't know, like I would, and they're bored with their power, this would maybe be the plot line. But the book was written before the plot line happened, so it's almost like it just gets planned, and then they just get so bored. They're like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if we just put it in a book? Like, I don't know, just put it in a book, what we're doing. Haha, laughing in everybody's faces. Feels like that. Interestingly enough, though, I was contacted by someone, a certain someone. For those of you who enjoyed my Brigitte series, Xavier Poussard has been working quite diligently over the last couple of years, not just on the story of Brigitte Macron and this weird ring that happens in France, but also that investigation brought him to Jeffrey Epstein. Because Jeffrey Epstein, as Ghislaine Maxwell, she was French as well, Mossad, and the investigation of Brigitte brought him to Jeffrey Epstein, and he said to me, Candace, would you want to do a series on Epstein? He asked me this about 2 months ago. And what I heard was, would you like to die? Would you like to die? Because that's kind of where, like, I mean, do you want to play around with that colony of the Cossers, the fake fictional one that totally doesn't exist? Do you want to play a game sort of a thing? And thinking maybe it could be interesting to hear what Xavier Poussard has to say. I think we got to team up. And he said to me, you need to understand this is bigger than even the Mossad and the CIA. It is a game that has been run for a very long time. Listen, that's what Xavier is saying. He mentioned some interesting names. And maybe where our government, with all of their resources, is failing the people, the actual journalists, which means if you are an actual journalist, the mainstream media hates you because they work for the state, right? They're a part of the club. We're not in it. And Xavier Poussard is pretty hated. I mean, he had to flee for his life. That's interesting. Like, he's not even allowed to live in France, and I wouldn't step foot on that soil. I don't know. Maybe it will be up to us. So what can I say, guys? Stay tuned. Throw to a couple of our sponsors before we get into Tucker Carlson. Remember, you have to hate Tucker Carlson, according to last week. Want to remind you guys about Goldco, because you've heard me say it before. We're living in very unpredictable times. The economy is shaky, inflation is rising, and the dollar does not go as far as it used to. That's why Americans are turning to gold, because gold is real, it's tangible, and it's held value for thousands of years. Unlike the stock market or currency, gold doesn't vanish when politicians make bad decisions, which, let's be honest, they do that all the time these days. Goldco are helping many people like you and I. Their experts are on standby. I trust them to help you protect your retirement with precious metals. Whether you're worried about inflation, government spending, or just want peace of mind, Goldco will make it easy for you. Here's what you need to do. You have to visit CandaceLikesGold.com, and you'll get your free 2025 gold and silver kit and learn about their unlimited bonus silver offer. Don't wait for the next crisis. Protect your future today. Go to CandaceLikesGold.com. Again, you can't forget that. It's CandaceLikesGold.com. Also, I'm excited to tell you guys about C15, brought to you by Fatty 15, the first emerging essential fatty acid to be discovered in more than 90 years. It's an incredible scientific breakthrough to support our long-term health, wellness, and healthy aging. Based on over 100 studies, we now know that C15 strengthens our cells and is a key healthy aging nutrient, which helps slow biological aging at the cellular level. When our cells don't have enough C15, they become fragile and they age us faster. Thankfully, Fatty 15 repairs age-related damage to cells, protects them from future breakdown, and activates pathways in the body that help regulate our sleep, cognitive health, and natural repair mechanisms that support our overall health. Fatty 15 is a science-backed, award-winning, patented 100% pure C15 supplement. It's free of flavors, allergens, or preservatives, and it's also vegan-friendly. Fatty 15 has 3 times more cellular benefits than omega-3 or fish oil. It comes in a gorgeous reusable glass bamboo jar, and the refills are shipped right to your door. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/Candace. Be sure to use code Candace at checkout. Again, fatty15.com/Candace with promo code Candace at checkout. All right, you guys. By the way, book club's going to be fun this week because we know what's going on. I don't know if that was a fantasy novel. Anyways, how it connects to Hollywood. These people seem like some pretty bad people. That's a lot of power. I don't know. Not gonna say anything else. We gotta talk about Tucker. Yeah, Tucker Carlson's at it again. He's pissing off a lot of people. And pastors, apparently, also, along with me. And he did this thing. Like journalists used to do this thing, or maybe they never did this thing, but Tucker is doing this thing where he seems to not necessarily trust the narratives that are being provided by the mainstream media. And he thinks it's better to go directly to the source of their ire. And so when they're going, rah, 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 we got to go to war. And let me tell you, we are not finished with Iran. Okay, do not be foolish. Oh, the 12-day war, LOL. Israel's defense systems were obviously low and they need to be replenished. That's my take. I'm sticking to it. Anyways, Tucker decided, hey, this would be a good time to maybe interview the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian. And he did. He announced that interview on Saturday, and immediately, strangely, the Zionist lobby people on X were having a mental breakdown. Let's show some of these tweets. Who do you got? Arsen Ostrovsky writes, so much for America first. For you, Tucker, it seems to be Iran first. Ooh, sick burn. I don't know how he's going to survive that. Avi Yamini writes, Tucker is anyone but America first. Oh, gosh, he couldn't be. Is he think he's going to allow Americans to think? This guy says the same thing. America first. Haha, that's now over. Doesn't he know that to be America first, you have to know that Americans can't think and they need to be propagandized and they shouldn't be able to hear both sides of an argument? I do always do that, by the way. I like to always just think about our foreign policy on like a more molecular level. Like, could you imagine if you had, let's just say, two kids that were fighting and they get into a fight and you're like, what happened? But you're like, I don't want to hear what you say, only you. I only trust you. Tell me what happened. And like, we're just not going to hear this version at all. And no matter what, we're just going to go, but we're going to punish this individual without ever hearing their side. It's completely crazy that we wouldn't hear the other side. Doesn't mean the other person's telling you the truth 100%, but we know sure as hell American journalists are not telling us the truth at all. So let's hear both sides and try to, I don't know, critically think. That's my idea here. Anyways, I'll show you a couple of clips here from that interview that has people freaking out. The first thing that I found so interesting was the discussion regarding a fatwa, okay? Because I'm going to tell you, truthfully, I came up in Zionist media accidentally just because I didn't really know much about Israel. And I was like, why not? Why wouldn't we want to defend people? Why wouldn't we want Jewish people to have a state? Like, I was very surface. And I was told repeatedly that a fatwa is issued and it basically is for, sends a message to all the Muslims that if you see this person, you should kill them. Like, it's essentially a death threat. That is what a fatwa is. That is what I was told. Listen to what the Iranian president has to say, and then I'm going to show you the true definition of a fatwa, which kind of surprised me. Take a listen.
2 Iranian ayatollahs have issued fatwas against Donald Trump. What does that mean exactly, and what do you think of it?
To the best of my knowledge, they have not issued decrees or fatwas against any individual or against Donald Trump. And first off, it has nothing to do with the Iranian government or to His Eminence, the Supreme Leader of Iran. Or what they actually meant by the fatwa was in condemnation of an insult to a religion or religious personalities, and they were actually saying that this is deplorable, this is unacceptable. So it was not directed towards the U.S. president or any other individual, and there might be people with their own ideas and opinions, but I can assure you that the meaning of this fatwa should not be construed or considered as a threat against any individual.
Okay, so color me ignorant. Like I said, I was specifically told by people who I was working for and working with that it meant like this is a death threat, essentially, that once they say they issue a fatwa that it means kill this person. And here is the actual definition of a fatwa. I just Googled this. It says a fatwa is a non-binding legal opinion in Islam issued by a qualified religious scholar known as a mufti on a specific issue. It serves as an interpretation of Islamic law and provides guidance to Muslims on various aspects of life, including religious practices and ethical dilemmas. Fatwas are not considered legally binding judicial rulings, but rather legal advice or directives based on Islamic teachings. Just want to read that to you because I was totally surprised that is what it was. It sounds like, when if you're a Catholic and is this Catholic doctrine and somebody has to furnish the answer to a yes or a no. That's what it sounds like. There could be more of it I'm missing, but that kind of caught me off guard because I just am constantly reassessing how unbelievably brainwashed I was previously. And again, this is not a defense of Iran. It's not a defense of Israel. It's just basically me standing up and saying how absurd it is that our media lies to us repeatedly. Then, regarding whether or not Iran tried to assassinate President Trump. Now, that very tough sell for me. Matthew Crooks did not look like he had it in with Iranians particularly. And the way that it disappeared from our media makes me think that maybe somebody else might have been involved that had a lot of power, okay? Here is what he had to say regarding any assassination plots towards President Trump. Take a listen.
Has Iran ever backed an assassination attempt against Donald Trump?
This is actually what Netanyahu is trying to insinuate and to make your people or the president of your country to believe. But this is wrong because Netanyahu, as I said, has its own agenda. It wants to drag the U.S. into forever wars, as I said, and to bring more insecurity, instability, and unrest to the whole region.
Okay, well, you're definitely not going to get a disagreement from me regarding Netanyahu. But I just want to be very clear. He's our friend and our ally. He's our friend and our ally. Definitely. My politicians say so, so it definitely must be true. If I had to guess from people that might have been on the Epstein list, it might have been like, almost the whole of Congress. But it's fascinating that the people are attacking Tucker for bringing you another version of events like they attacked him when he sat down with Putin, because that almost should be the media's job if they were actually the fourth estate and were actually interested in making sure that our governments were not becoming too corrupt. They wouldn't attack journalists. Like I said, the journalists that are actually being attacked, if you Google someone's name and they're loved and celebrated by the media, you know that you should not be listening to that person. It's that simple. It really is that simple. Because to tell the truth is to render yourself an enemy of the state. That is just the reality that I'm living and that I am accepting. But I remain optimistic. Why do I have a smile on my face? Because people are waking up. They are waking up to these tactics. And I get it. Maybe the Costers are bored because they've had so much power and they control the education system and they've brainwashed so many of us and they're controlling the congressmen. And they're laughing at us and creating fantasy novels and just disappearing. I mean, everything of that it seems that they lock down, right? JFK's assassination, the Epstein files, it always pertains to whenever Israel's name is involved. That is just the reality. And people seem to be radically accepting that we've been deluded. We have been totally deluded. Of course, our awakening is not going to come without a fight like hell, because I do believe there could have been maybe a place that was settled by political extremists on the basis of everything that I've researched. And that's why I started this book club. And it's going to get interesting. They are going to be extreme in trying to stop this awakening. But we also have to be just as extreme in our commitment to telling the truth. That's how I feel. That's why I wake up and do what I do every day. And that's why I'm so happy, because once you've committed yourself just to the truth, not to money, then I just feel like you're actually free. You are truly free. And so that's what I'm going to do. Anyways, you guys, before I get into some of your comments, a heavy episode today. I'm going to tell you about a couple more of my sponsors. Qatar, Iran, just kidding. I'm telling you guys about Pure Talk. If you are with Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, you're overpaying for wireless. You're paying for thousands of retail stores that you never go into. You're paying for unnecessary perks that you never use. And you're paying for a massive premium for what you think is a superior 5G service, but it's not. Pure Talk actually uses the same 5G network on the same 5G towers. The only difference is they don't charge you for any of the extra garbage. Instead, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data for just $25 a month. That is less than half the price of the big guys, especially during a time when saving money really matters. I'm a Pure Talk customer. I made the switch. You can even keep your phone and your phone number. Just go to puretalk.com/Owens and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. You can literally be switched over to Pure Talk in less than 10 minutes. That's puretalk.com/Owens to switch to Pure Talk. That is wireless by Americans for Americans. Also, I always remind you guys about American financing, because there's a chance that you could be delaying your next 2 mortgage payments. Imagine putting those 2 payments instead in your pocket and finally getting a little bit of breathing room. Well, it's totally possible if you call American Financing today. If you're feeling stretched by everyday expenses, the grocery, the gas, the bills, you're not alone. Obviously, most Americans are putting these expenses on credit cards now, and there does not seem to be a way out. American Financing can show you how to use your home's equity to pay off that debt. So call American Financing today before you get to a point where you can't make those payments, because their salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners just like you restructure their loans and consolidate debt, all without any upfront fees. And their customers are saving an average of $800 a month. That's like basically a $10,000 raise annually. It's fast, it's simple, and it could save your budget this summer. So do not wait any longer. Call American Financing today. The number is 800-795-1210. Again, 800-795-1210. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Owens. Again, that's AmericanFinancing.net/Owens. All right, can't wait to see your comments. We are, by the way, speaking of book club people, that's tomorrow. Back in the book club, wrapping up Hollywood Babylon. Babylon seems to be at the center of a lot of this. There are a lot of people today that you think are regular journalists and writers that are involved in some shenanigans. I've been doing so much research over the last couple of years. It's amazing to realize that we are living in a kind of a matrix. We really are. It's an information war. Words are the weapon, and you got to wake up and get wise to it. But the good news is that once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. So they have to deal with that. They have to deal with all of that. Okay. Who do we have? Helio writes, I guess protests in the street won't happen unless it's your kids being trafficked or being sent to foreign conflicts or another nation. There are demons governing your lives. No telling what's next. Yep, absolutely true. Jane Doe writes, I'd love to know your opinion regarding BBC employees' letter about their pro-Israel content, more and more standing up against Israel propaganda. I actually was not aware of that there were BBC employees that wrote a letter. Oh, yeah, here it is. 100 BBC insiders pen a letter accusing the UK broadcaster of being PR for Israel. Stars like Miriam Margolyes and Charles Dance sign. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was BBC, but I also saw that there was a documentary. I think it was BBC, actually, because I spoke about it with my husband because I wanted to understand how BBC works since it's like government owned. And he was telling me, because there was some group that wanted to premiere a documentary about Gaza, and basically the BBC, they had to go to court. It got shut down because they said that it didn't represent both sides of the issue well, or like that's how they assess whether or not it can appear on BBC. And I do want to say to the creators of that content, if you want me to put up on my website and promote it so people can see it, I will do that. I certainly do not understand why they would prevent people from seeing what's happening in Gaza. And so, yeah, I was not aware they wrote this letter. I'm not surprised at all. Like I said, it is the majority of people have woken up to what's going on here. Gurvan Deep Singh writes, what about 1 minute of surveillance of the video missing? Yes, apparently, and I have to fact check this because I found out this right before we went live, but apparently the Epstein tape, which shows that no one went in, because we didn't see like Shawshank Redemption or the Count of Monte Cristo. Like there's no way there could be a tunnel to get out of a cell or anything. But anyways, the point is that this footage apparently is missing a minute. Again, they did say that some of it would be enhanced, but I don't know why you would enhance it by deleting a minute. So we'll have to look into that further and maybe report more tomorrow when more information comes out. And not something that I looked into particularly, but it has been said across social media today. So I promise I will commit to looking into that. Groovin with Christ writes, I love that. Groovin with Christ. God bless you always, to Jesus through Mary. Absolutely. Keep the prayers up, by the way, because they work. Black Scorpio writes, I am so very disappointed in Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi, who all made these grandiose promises to get the Epstein files until they got confirmed into the administration and now toe the line like all the other deep state corrupt folks. I just can't imagine what happens when you get in there. Like, I think they maybe just sit you down and then they're like, ha, and they turn it around and they're like, we've been monitoring you since you were 14 and at the Dalton School. Remember that party you went to with your math teacher, Mr. Epstein? Yeah, there were cameras there. And we've watched you do this. We've watched you do that. Like, they're definitely running some sort of sting through Harvard. That's another thing that I've picked up on. Harvard, Columbia, all over the world. After Grammy parties, you got the Diddy link. You want to get into these clubs. They make these people seem cool. So you want to go hang out with them, like Epstein. He's a billionaire and nobody knows why. And people want to go to the parties. And so they just need a few assets who are absurdly rich, have cameras all throughout their properties. For my book club people, Tom Ince would have been the earliest iteration of this. The Peeping Tom label actually comes from this director in Hollywood, Tom Ince, who set up these peeping holes throughout his mansion, giant mansion, where all of the actresses and everyone would come. And so this stuff has been going on for a very long time. And it's a very sophisticated network. And so I trust Xavier Poussard's assessment that it's pretty crazy. And I'll leave it at that. Lastly, God's beloved daughter writes, as soon as Elon Musk claimed that DJT is on the list, suddenly there is no list. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Watching people try to spin that is going to be interesting. I can't do it. I suffer, as you guys know, from that condition of realness. I cannot do it. I can't do the fake stuff. I have to say always what I believe, and something is not right there. What that something is, I've never believed that Trump was a client, but something is very clearly not right in terms of how Trump behaves when it comes to anything involving Israel. I don't feel good about it, and you shouldn't feel good about it. None of us should feel good about it, and we have a right to call that out. Lastly, Rhiannon writes, you are my go-to news source because I feel like I can't trust anyone else, and I admire your unfiltered honesty. What's your opinion on the alleged Tulsi fallout with Trump and the big, beautiful bill? Not sure what the truth is. I'm not sure what the truth is either. I will say the way that Trump spoke about Tulsi, and I think we showed that image last week when on the topic of Iran, I wouldn't be happy if I was kind of thrown under the bus very quickly without so much as a conversation when on the topic of Iran and whether or not they had nukes. I didn't think that was his finest moment. That's not how, when you're on a team, you just don't throw your team members under the bus like that. So more will come out. I don't have any inside baseball on that. I can't tell you what's going on personally. I can try to see what I can find out. And of course, as you know, I will let you guys know, because there are a lot of people that we can't trust, and that is just the circumstance. Anyways, reminding you guys, if you'd like to sign up for the book club, that is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, and you should join it because there's a lot to learn. We're not even scratching the surface with Epstein. Not even scratching the surface here, you guys. And if you want to support our show, because we are independent, I would really appreciate if you guys just went to CandaceOwens.com anyways and signed up. It doesn't matter if you buy a cup, if you buy a sweatshirt, if you join the Candace Owens Club, there's tons of content that you'll get that's not here. I think that you will very much enjoy it, especially our series committed to vaccines. And yeah, I would love it if you guys supported independent journalists because we certainly need it. Otherwise, we'll see you guys tomorrow.